I asked it, hey, how many unread emails do I have? And then it gave me the top emails that I had. I integrated my calendar with it, freaking blew my mind. I'm an 800-pound, morbidly obese person. I'm just trying to clap my hands. Okay, if you had to bet, 50% of entry-level white-collar jobs within 5 years will be eliminated. Over under. Well, I'm still having some hangover from the Sam Altman, Johnny Ive announcement, and also just trying to catch up on everything that Google's done. Yeah. At the same time, Perplexity Labs has come out. I know Manus is like introducing some new stuff, which is funny because you said to me right before we started that actually this has been a pretty slow week in AI. But even in a slow week, there's been a ton of things that people are still trying to digest from the previous weeks. What do you think of the current state of what's going on right now?
It's funny because I have you ever been to the carnival before?
Sure.
Okay. So they have this little game where you spray horses and everyone's sort of spraying. And I keep having that in my mind of every week with AI where it's someone's in the lead and then someone else sort of overtakes them.
Yeah.
It's wild because, Anthropic came out with just some features, but it's just to get parity with the other guys. They have voice mode this week.
Yep.
Their big announcement. And I feel like that's happening. It's someone gets a leg up for maybe 2 weeks, literally, and then someone else meets them at feature parity. So it's just wild.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I actually started, we're going to do this a little bit later, but I started messing around with Claude. I integrated my email and my calendar, and you showed me how to do this a month ago, but I finally did it. The reason I did it today was because I was getting ready for this and I saw, Claude released their voice to text technology. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. I wanted to do X, Y, and Z. It's almost like when they're announcing new features, it's just their way of staying in the news. It's we just got to, it doesn't even matter if it's a good feature or not. It's just They're staying relevant.
Right. Absolutely. We'll talk about it in a few minutes too. I feel like they've been trying to play the marketing game, playing on some fears. So they have their own marketing strategy, but I am a fan of the product.
Let's just talk about that. Let's just hop into it. So Anthropic this week, I think the founder of Anthropic voiced some concerns with AI. And correct me if I'm wrong. I think he said 50% of white collar jobs are going to be eliminated in the next 2 years.
Specifically entry-level jobs. So
oh my gosh,
make a distinction. So if you're a senior person, all us older people maybe have some safety, maybe.
Well, maybe, but last week I just listened to a podcast with Sundar. I think it was Sundar, where he said, I think management is actually the level that's going to be eliminated first, basically. So it's don't worry, just entry level and management. Those are the two that are going to go first.
Right.
It's wait, what? So what did he say, the founder of Anthropic? What exactly was his concern?
So basically he said that, AI agents are going to be able to take over most of the work of folks because as people enter the workforce, they're doing a lot of data entry work, grunt work, or even if you look at some of the more historically prized professions depends who you are, but going into investment banking or legal, some of those very paperwork and analytical heavy, already AI is taking a chunk of those businesses. And I saw a couple weeks ago too, McKinsey had actually laid off some of their staff. Now, again, whether that's related to AI or not, unclear. And there were a couple, funny memes as a result of that one. But AI is absolutely going to be eating away at those. And I, again, feel bad from a macroeconomic standpoint where you have all these folks that have gone to school, have racked up all the student debt, and as it is, having a hard time to get jobs. And now all the skills that they may or may have not acquired.
I totally. I want to talk about the veracity of his argument in a second, but I first want to ask your opinion on this.
Okay.
It almost feels because he came out and he started calling for transparency. I want to say he even called for government intervention of some kind.
Yeah.
It almost feels to me everybody else is getting too far ahead of me. Let's bring the government in so we slow people down. More of a tactic as opposed to he actually believes this. I have no clue. I don't know the guy from Adam.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think there's definitely some truth to that because at the end of the day, I think there's a question of who wins this. People have said who's going to win this race. You can't really say, I think, even that there's going to be a winner. One, there's a lot of competition. So if you make a parallel back to when the browser days or whatever, who ended up winning those with Netscape and then that shifted. I just think things are going to be so fast and getting so commoditized that the competition will persist. I don't think there's going to be a clear winner. And I think because of the last couple of weeks, each of them are sort of picking a lane. Mm-hmm. But I think you're right that, if they can have regulatory capture in some regard, they're going to try to go after it. And so you have, both ChatGPT sort of itching towards that, or at least they had over the, last couple of years. They've sort of shifted their tune a bit. But I think also I don't want to get into politics here too much, but I think some of the staff from Anthropic too come from the Biden administration and had some relationships with some more censorship type stuff. And when they first launched, they were much more biased, which was very obvious in their product and the results you were getting. So I think they just have probably a more tendency towards safety. I mean, that was their whole pitch leaving OpenAI, because for those that don't know, that team basically came from OpenAI. So
Oh, the Anthropic team came from OpenAI?
oh, yeah. Yeah. I think they were, a couple of them were like head of safety too. So yeah. Yeah.
There's something that I found interesting. I listened to the All In podcast and which I like. I think they do a good job of trying to frame the conversation. But one of the things I'm trying to internalize is they're talking about, hey, we think that AI is actually going to accelerate the economy. So the economy is actually going to grow faster than we've experienced in the past.
Yep.
So worrying about these job losses is not worrisome because yes, those jobs may be lost, but the economy is going to grow so fast, there'll be even more jobs created. The disconnect for me in that is that's assuming that there is job creation and that the delta doesn't just accrue to the incumbents, if that makes sense. So the rich aren't just going to get richer, it is going to get redistributed. I don't know that that's the case because if these jobs are being eliminated and these companies just become more profitable, what are they going to go redeploy? Like firemen at their data centers? I just don't understand the argument necessarily of, oh no, more jobs will be created. Maybe I'm just being a neophyte.
No, I mean, I have to be a tech optimist just because otherwise it's a very dark future. So I will come and be transparent about that. But I can argue myself in both directions, I think, just like you. I think, if we look at history as any guidance, and again, there's plenty of things that are different about right now, but, every tech transformation, revolution, this has always been a fear. This is not new. I mean, when bicycles came out, people were scared that, women would leave, weird things, people always have, it's really, that's a whole other story that's really funny, but there have always been fears. So, and we've always had this. I mean, even when we were going from agricultural society and we became an industrial society, like that shift of, okay, we have plenty of food now. I mean, you look back and people are hunting. So it's like our basic needs are met. Now the paperwork needs are met. All of these things are being taken care of. And I think with AI, yes, things will be able to be done for itself, but I think just there will be new problems that we can't even foresee. And I was trying to even think of what are examples of problems that we have now that have happened. I mean, you wouldn't even think well, maybe data entry was always a thing or, certain parts of the DevOps stack or whatever. And I know that's a little bit more sophisticated, but I have to be optimistic that there will be new jobs. I mean, maybe take some bigger picture ideas, space, going to space. That's like a new frontier, right? So there's going to be jobs around that. Yeah, maybe there'll be robots, but you just have to build those robots. There'll be maybe new opportunities, even exploring Earth. And I know these are more different types of problems.
Well, I have an idea.
Yeah.
And I could be way off base here. Some of my most enjoyable time of the week is being outside in the yard, picking the weeds, walking with my kids, doing things outside. And over the last 100 years, there's been a shift in our society from being outside and active to this professional working class that are inside in a cubicle at a computer. And when we were growing up, it was, you need to go to college so you're not like the plumber over there. And we sort of demonized this sweaty work. I actually think that the pendulum is going to swing back the other way, that people will find satisfaction in working with their hands or helping other people, or those jobs are going to obviously have to change the way that they pay. And maybe that's where the dollars accrue. But we don't ultimately know. I think we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. To me, the trades are going to be something that we have to invest in if we're going to have the power capacity, not even power, the power generation to fuel AI. I am interested. I do understand the fear, but I'm optimistic as you are. I think that we'll figure out our way through it, even though it's going to be messy.
And at the end of the day, humans are problem creating machines. That's what we do. We solve our own problems. So someone needs to solve them and we'll figure out new ones to have. So,
okay. So, if you had to bet, the over under, he said 5 years he said 1 to 5 years. I'm looking at it right here. 50% of entry level white collar jobs within 5 years will be eliminated? Over under.
For entry level. And that's specifically, yeah, I think that's about right. I think everything else over.
I'm going to take the over on
Okay.
white collar entry level jobs. I just think things take longer than you think. They cost more money and they take longer than you think. I think the technology will be there very quickly. It's going to be, the adoption is going to be crazy. I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing unions make a comeback as workers get together and are like, let's unionize so that we can stop them from implementing AI to cut our jobs. That would not surprise me in the slightest. I just don't think 5 years is going to be as quick as it gets replaced unless there's something equally as exciting on the other end where it's like, hey, yeah, that job's gone, but actually we have this other job that you could come and work for. So anyways, that's my thought on it. Okay, so talking about Claude, can I show something to you?
Please do.
All right, I'm going to share my screen. Hey, I don't know if you remember this, but when we started this podcast, we entered into a social contract. I would spend time, energy, and money producing this podcast, interviewing these individuals and giving you insights into how to build, buy, start, grow your business. And you would like, subscribe, and leave me 5-star review. Now, out of that, we both get to talk to really cool people and hear really cool insights. We both get a ton of value. But I just want to help you keep your word. So would you do me a favor? Will you go leave a 5-star review for me on Apple or Spotify? It would really help. And if you want, even share this with a friend. So I've been thinking this week in particular, I just have a lot going on. I think a lot of people have a lot going on.
Yes.
And it's really, really hard to figure out how you use AI within your working life. Obviously, if you're a small business owner and you're listening to this, you're probably just trying to get some tips and tricks in order to utilize AI in your business. I'm still a big believer that right now, AI's kind of best role is as a advisor, consultant, whatever you want to call it. I forgot that Claude could actually integrate with your email. So I went today, I integrated it with my email, freaking blew my mind. I asked it right here. You have 201 unread emails. I asked it, hey, how many unread emails do I have? And then it gave me the top emails that I had. I integrated my calendar with it, and it tells me, hey, this is what your calendar looks like tomorrow. It's an admin day. You've got a ProPod meeting, which is a company that I was an advisor for out of UC Berkeley, and then your podcast recording with Ellie tomorrow at 11 a.m. So the minute I saw this, for me, I realized there's an opportunity here to use AI as an assistant.
Yep.
And I was like, dude, Liz could show me how to do this because I'm a Neanderthal, and I think Liz can actually show me how to make this work. So this is the very next prompt.
Okay.
And I think if you're a business owner, this may not be the exact thing that you use, but think about how you might apply this to you. I want to create a project that acts as my personal assistant. So within Claude, you can have projects. It's the same thing as a project in ChatGPT. You can even think of it as a GPT. But the cool thing about projects is you can upload contextual documents. And within that chat, the history of those documents, the history of that chat will stay, and it just gets better over time. You can refine it over time. So think of it as you're training an employee, and that knowledge essentially is staying with that employee. So I said, I want to create a project. They would have that acts as my personal assistant. They would have access to my emails and calendar. Every Sunday, we would go through items that need to be completed in the upcoming week. And then every morning, I would check in with it to get my schedule for the day with tasks that I need to complete. So that's just the way that I'm viewing it. Hey, every Sunday, what's going on this week? What are my outstanding items? And then I, can kind of schedule my week and just hear the things that I need to get done every single day. And as a business owner, so you have to do. You have to plan your week and figure out what's the top priority and what's not. To get the most out of this project, how would I set it up? So I'm asking now Claude the question, what contextual documents would I need? And how often would I need to update them? So it's not the craziest prompt in the world, but I felt like it was a decent enough prompt to just throw out there. What do you think?
Yeah, no, this is good. This is good. Yep.
All right. So here's what it spits out to me. Fantastic idea. I love how complimentary these things are. Like, I don't know if it's like, hey, developers, make sure it's as nice to the people using it as possible because we want them to continue to use it more and they know it's a mental trick. Or if the data set that they're just trained on, make sure that human interaction is really kind. I don't know, but I love how nice it is to me and reinforcing. Okay, so the key with this personal assistant project is progressive enhancement. Start simple and build complexity as you establish habits. Makes sense. Based on what I can see from your current setup, you're already dealing with the exact use cases this would optimize. So here's why I love just the setup. I tried to hire virtual assistants in the past. And if you're a small business owner, I'm sure that you've thought about doing it. What do you think is the hardest part about hiring and onboarding a virtual assistant?
Well, finding quality people, I mean, and then being able to communicate all the things and having to document all the things to
Boom.
train them.
That's
Yeah.
it. That's the piece. Many times we don't even know what we want them to do. We just know like we're so busy, we have to offload something to somebody. So we're like, let's hire a virtual assistant. And then they get onboarded and it's like, what do I give them? How do I give it to them? And so you then are doing the internal work of trying to figure out, okay, what days should they check in on what? Who are they responding to? What items can I offload? It takes a little bit of time. Does Claude read to you as a male or a female?
I actually do boy. I think I do
Okay.
guy.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
It makes sense to me. Anyways, I call it a she. So what she has said to me is like, cool, this is a big project. Let me break it down for you, Nick. Here's the quick start recommendation. This week, just create a personal operating manual and weekly goals template. Next week, add the daily morning routine. Week 3, introduce the Sunday planning ritual. And month 2, add relationship tracking. So already I'm feeling less anxiety because it's like, cool, I've got the professional here. They're going to show me how to set this up. I don't have to figure it out on my own. And then it says some other things. The most critical success factors is consistency in weekly planning sessions. This is where the AI learns your patterns and priorities. Missed too many stuff, blah, blah, blah. All right. So then it says, here are the contextual documents that we need in priority. So the reason contextual documents are important is because it can't give you advice or input unless it knows you. So it says, all right, create a personal operating manual, weekly goals templates, task classification system, and project context documents. I'm going to go through how it outlines and describes these things in a minute, but I've said a lot of words. What do you think of the way I've set like the setup and like its initial response to me?
So quick question, just to clarify, you want to do this as a Claude project. Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay. Okay.
There could be a better way to do it. I'm just an idiot. And so I'm like, projects sound good. Me upload info to project.
So I guess the question is, because where I would think about this is, are you going to want to be adding your stuff in here every week, or are you going to want it to like access a tool like Google Drive or whatever other storage system you're using as sort of it just picking up things from the organization system you already have?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, first of all, I would say, what organization system? Second, I would say my hope would be that given the context of what I find to be important, which I'd have to go through that process of who I am, how I respond to things, et cetera, and then having access to my emails, having access to my calendar, there would be enough context for it to actually be helpful to me. But I do think that I would have to update documents at least once a week.
So yes. Okay, so a couple things just to consider because Claude is wonderful, but the one thing and the one feature that's odd that they have yet to do without using a third-party tool is you can't have like recurring prompts run like you can in ChatGPT with their sort of task
GPTs.
system. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's the one thing to consider, which again, I use Claude all the time. I use it more than ChatGPT, even with that. But like, if you wanted to have, let's say, it email you something or whatever, you're going to have to run that and prompt it versus having it do like automate that, unless you're using something like a Zapier. And there's a possibility to do it with MCP. I'd have to think through where that trigger would come from. But that's just a consideration that you'll have to at least be uploading documents and then reprompting it.
So have I ever told you my Richard Simmons story?
No.
Okay, when I was growing up, my mom used to exercise to Richard Simmons. And for whatever reason, I remember waking up at like 6 a.m. and she'd be dancing to Richard Simmons. He's super flamboyant, health nut. But for whatever reason, I've always remembered this story. And it could totally be a made up story, but for all I remember, it was Richard Simmons. He had this woman who was morbidly obese. She wanted to lose weight, 800 pounds. I don't know, something ridiculous. And the woman's like, well, what do I need to do? And how can I start actually losing weight? Like she couldn't get out of bed. And so Richard Simmons said, here's what I need you to do. First thing, just clap your hands a couple times a day for like 15 minutes. And like the simple act of clapping her hands was getting the cardio going where she started to burn calories. Obviously, there's the other side of the equation where she needed to eat less food. But like the cardiovascular workout started from clapping. And then over time, obviously she lost weight. She got more physically fit. She started doing other things like hiking and probably running and swimming, blah, blah, blah. But Like that idea of like, just clap your hands. I know it sounds so stupid simple, but that's just going to get you started down the road. I agree with you. We could get MCPs in here. I could get every automation in the world going, but I'm an 800-pound, morbidly obese person. I'm just trying to clap my hands. So like, that's why for me, this is thinking I'm going to create a project. Within that project would be this. And so every day I would just come in and ask it like, what do I have to do today? Right. And then I would hit that and I would just start another conversation for that day. That's my thinking. And then I just think over time, it'd be like, man, this would be a lot easier if I could automate this part of the task. If I over-engineer it right now, I'm just worried I won't actually follow through with it.
Fair enough. So let's get you to 799 pounds.
Yes. Okay. So I find it really frustrating that Claude can integrate with Google, but ChatGPT can't. Because
it can.
Not my Gmail. I know. Through an automation, if I go to Zapier or some bull crap.
No, I want to double check that that's not correct.
Well,
that's
all I saw was...
Nope, you're right. It's only Drive.
Google Drive.
Yeah, you're right. Okay.
Anyways, so the reason for that is because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to look here at, okay, she said, here are the context documents that you need to do first. And that's what she said to do this week. Perfect. Personal operating manual, the most important, and it defines how you work. So if I come over here, these are the foundational documents. The personal operating manual is going to have my work style preferences, decision-making frameworks, energy management patterns, and personal values and priorities. Now, if ChatGPT had this integrated already, I would just go to ChatGPT and say, answer these questions for me. In fact, that's actually what I'm going to do. So I'm just going to go here and say, I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go to ChatGPT and I'm going to start a new chat. I'll share that tab and I would say, I am building a personal operating manual. The first contextual document I need is to answer these questions as, I don't know, thoroughly? I can't spell.
Yeah, thoroughly.
As possible.
You don't need to worry about spelling, yeah.
I know. Knowing what you know about me, please give this the information it needs to make it useful for my new GPT project. Executive assistant. Okay. And now we're going to see what ChatGPT says about me. I haven't done this. I'm a little bit.
Yeah, it's like nerve-wracking, right?
I know. All right. So here's my personal operating manual, my work style preferences. I'm a chronotype. My default is a morning person. True. Sharpest, earliest in the day. And my productivity is lower at night. That makes sense. Deep work versus shallow work. Yes, that is 100% true. You prefer 60 to 90 minute uninterrupted sessions for high leverage work. Typically, I do one to do these per day. It's great. Shallow work, emails, podcasts, logistics, and small ops tasks are best batched into low energy afternoon windows. That is so true about me. Jeez Louise. Communication style preferences, direct, efficient, and clarity driven. Dislikes fluff. Okay, kind of hurtful, but tone is friendly but sharp. Really? Friendly but sharp? Yeah. Would you describe me as friendly but sharp?
I mean,
it's interesting.
Like to the point, but you know when to use stories. So I don't know. Yeah. Okay.
Decision-making frameworks. What's the upside? What's the downside? Can I live with the downside? Fair. Is this the highest leverage use of my time? That one right there. Is this the highest leverage use of my time right now? Is something I ask all the time. What's the next irreversible decision point? I never thought of it that way. Will this help me hit my $250,000 a year content and consulting goal? Have I ever told you that's my goal?
No. That
is so crazy. I haven't said that to ChatGPT in a while either. When I started all of this stuff, my wife's like, what you doing all day? You just messing around on YouTube? And so for me, it was like, all right, if I can show dollars coming in, at least she'll associate value with that. And $250,000 was my goal. Okay. This is really interesting. This is not robust enough, in my opinion, for a context document. What do you think?
I mean, I'm a nerd about frameworks, so I feel like we could add some in. It just depends how personalized you want it to be based on you versus like a best practice or, whatever. So that's, I would say, a preference.
Can I ask you a question? For these context documents, like how long should they be? 10,000 words?
No, I mean, the more context you give it, the better. I don't know the right number to say, but I would say like whatever context it needs. I know that's like sort of a cop-out answer, but I mean, a
No,
couple pages is good, but you also don't want to give it unnecessary context, if that makes sense.
I just always feel like Claude gives me, if I ask for like a context document, it gives me a ton of information.
Mhm.
Whereas ChatGPT is like as not limited, but as little
It's
as possible. It's just
yeah.
like trying to be as efficient as possible. I don't know. I don't know why the difference. Have you noticed that?
Oh, 1,000%. That's why I use Claude a lot. You've got I think Claude is sort of the overachiever, and then Claude is like the passing grade, or sorry, ChatGPT is
ChatGPT.
yeah.
Well, and that's why it's frustrating is because I'd rather use Claude for this, but ChatGPT has, I mean, I use ChatGPT for everything. So it has all of my information in it to create this. Yeah. So to your point, maybe I should break up some of these sections, ask it to expand on that, and then put it all into a context document.
And if you wanted to use for getting those frameworks, like then I would hop back over to Claude, because then what it can do is actually create multiple artifacts, which are those like document pop-outs that you were showing. Yep. So
Okay.
off to the right, that core system, that's called an artifact. So it
Okay.
can
Well,
actually,
hold on. I'm so sorry. What's the artifact?
so what you're looking at where you're scrolling up and down,
This thing?
this whole thing, the way it pops out
Uh
is,
huh.
the technical name is an artifact. So it's
Okay.
basically like generating a document of some sort. So it can create
Mhm.
multiple of those in the same prompt. So you can say like create two two artifacts or two documents, maybe pick like two of the sections or something and say use search the web for best practices frameworks on, maybe do your decision making framework and personal, well,
Oh,
and so then it can give you those, and it'll give you very comprehensive things, but it'll create two separate documents you can work through unless you wanted them consolidated. But I've just found it
no.
helpful to have separated.
So, like doing this, create two artifacts for the best practices on decision making frameworks and let's say personal values and priorities. And then you said search the web.
And say search the web for the best practices.
Okay, let's see what it says. I found this really cool prompt advice this week. I want to see what you think of it. In the prompt advice, it said, get like 5 examples
Mhm,
of things that are really good and that you really like, put them in there,
mhm.
and then like use this sentence. Looking at these examples, what prompt would you generate in order to generate them? Or like what prompt would you create to generate them? I can't remember the exact wording, but effectively it's like, how do you reverse engineer it?
Yep.
I thought that was so fascinating. Have you ever done that?
Oh, all the time.
Oh
Absolutely.
gosh, you're so smart.
So, okay, if you wanna Google, or I feel bad saying go to Google this, but it's easiest. Anthropic's
Yes.
prompt, they have a prompting tool that will create great prompts for you. I wanna say it's
Michael Greenberg showed this to me recently.
oh, okay.
I've never used it, but he did show it to me.
It's great. Once you start getting a sense of the, like, framework, because it's a pretty standard framework once you start playing around with it, but it's pretty good.
All right, so now it's generated me. Oh, so here's one of the artifacts.
Yep.
Here's the decision-making frameworks. Effective decision-making is specific executive tasks. Wow. Okay, so in the past where I would have had to sit down and say like, what are the important frameworks? Well, what even is a framework? What are the core tenets that I need to have? This is now telling me the core tenets that I need to have. So I'm going to copy that. I'm now going to go back to,
Actually, you don't even need to copy it. If you wanna add it into your project folder, or are you going over to ChatGPT? Sorry, I
I
didn't.
was going over to
Oh,
ChatGPT
okay.
to,
Okay, never mind.
yeah,
Go
yeah. But no,
go ahead.
show me how to do that. I just
Okay,
go,
so if you wanted to oh, you can't do that. Why? Usually you
maybe I
can
have,
add this into your project knowledge directly from here. I don't know for
do I
like
have the cheat plan? Is
no,
that what?
I don't know why it's not letting you do that, but that's okay. I don't wanna distract us from that.
All right. Oh,
So
so I'm going to go back to ChatGPT and I'm going to say, using these best practices, please generate me or create me my frameworks.
mhm.
I feel stupid. Let's see what this says.
But that's the thing is, like, you don't even need to know what to prompt it. Doesn't give you the right thing, you iterate. That's, like, the best thing about this. There's, like, 0 cost associated with that, except for 30 seconds of your life, right?
Yeah. Yes. So are these my? I need to go back and look at. Okay, so this is telling you how to write. So the SPADE framework, rapid framework, whatever, Daisy Rice. So it's giving all of these frameworks, and it feels like this response from ChatGPT are not my specific frameworks.
So why don't you say this? Say, based on my personal history and what you know about me, which ones would best suit my style for which topic are we on? The personal, just like
Frameworks.
decision frameworks for decision making.
Yeah. Or what? All right, let's see what that says. Great question, dude. So nice. Great question and a smart next move. I just said, based on my personal history and what you know about me, which ones would best suit my style, or what frameworks not included on this doc would you recognize in my interactions with you? So the top frameworks from the existing doc that suit me: SPADE. You naturally break things into context, stakeholders, and options. Okay, cool. So it gives me here the ones from this doc. And then it says the ones not listed: the barbell strategy. Cool. That is true. Regret minimization framework. That's, yes, very true. Oh, I got a Charlie Munger in here. Inversion. Rad. So now I can take this and add it. And like, would you like me to add these missing frameworks to your decision frameworks document? Yes, please. And now it's creating me a document that I can go and upload to Claude.
Yep.
Dude, this is so cool. I can't wait to build out the rest of this because I think that it will be helpful as I'm trying to get more organized and use AI more. Let me ask you this question though. Based on what you've seen so far, any advice or like, hey, there's a really good start, but you need to make sure that you're looking for XYZ things?
I would say like help give it also like because it'll just sort of, so Claude will end up pulling either all of the things or it'll make the decision on what to do. So you almost want to, since you now have like 10 different frameworks, this is sort of getting meta, but like how does it decide which framework to use for what?
To apply.
Yeah. So that's like if you have an opinion on that. If you want it to figure it out, it will do that. So I would say that's like one thing. Number two, your project knowledge is going to be important because it will pull on that, even if if you don't ask it to, unless you explicitly don't ask it to. So connecting, specific documents to that is important. But I mean, I think you're on the right track here. It just depends how like detailed you want to get, and like you don't want to also overwhelm it. So, and when
that's how I feel.
yeah. So like you'll want to think, what are the main things? And again, it'll learn from your example. So even if you have to iterate, that's totally fine. But like, for instance, I piled in a bunch of stuff in a project knowledge document, and sometimes it'll pull the wrong like example than what I want it to. And so you just have to be very specific in your instructions as well. So those are just like some small tips that I think are fairly intuitive, but just to highlight and call out.
I think there's a lot of value in it helping you codify, the Liz operating system or the Nick operating system. I don't want to over engineer it, but I do want it to be there like, oh, hey, it's Tuesday. You got this email that you do need to respond to. And oh, by the way, you're doing this later. You might want to prepare, make suggestions. Even as silly as it sounds, like write me the first draft of a response to so-and-so, because sometimes I have ADD and it like overwhelms me or like gives me anxiety to like respond to somebody. So I just like the idea of it getting me going. And then at some point I can automate a lot of things.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to clap my hands.
Yeah. I feel like you lost a pound today. So I think we've at least gotten through your goal,
Yes.
your mini goal.
Yes. Okay. All right. Well, I love this. I got a ton of value. I can't wait to show you what I've built next week.
All right.
Don't judge me too harshly, but we'll talk soon.
All right. Sounds good.
Cool.
Thanks.
All right. Hopefully you liked that episode. And if you've made it this far, you're either really committed or you're stuck doing yard work and you can't actually skip on your phone. So while I have you, the show is growing, but I have a favor to ask of you. Will you please help me grow the show? I want to reach more people. There's a couple things that you can do. Like and subscribe is the simplest thing. Obviously, you want to get notifications for when the next episode is coming out. But if you go the next step, will you leave me a review? 5-star on Spotify or Apple. What that does is it tells the algorithm that, oh, hey, this is a high value podcast because more people are leaving reviews for it, and it then pushes it out to more people. So that's why when people are like, will you like and subscribe and put a 5-star rating? It's not just to make themselves feel better. It's actually to get more exposure for the show. So if you do that for me, I would greatly appreciate it. And I'll see you next time.